Sandwiches, ice cream, coffee and snacks, and many other pleasing treats. Our foods are fresh and tasty, our drinks satisfying and refreshing. They're so good.
Welcome to Average Joe's Drive-In.
And now, on with the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to Average Joe's Drive-In, the Friday the 13th episode. I am your host, TJ Washburn, and with me on last minute, coming in, flying in his Jason Voorhees mask, dropping out of a chopper down into Camp Crystal Lake is Eugene Weaver of the Movie Freaks to save the day. So everybody give it up for Eugene. Hey!
All right. I am here in the house.
I was like, I had to find somebody that, is as nerdy about Friday the 13th as I am, that's on, that I'm good friends with, and I know we can just like shoot the shit for while about Friday the 13th. So I'm like, yeah, I think Eugene's seen them a couple times. So
I've seen them, a couple times, and by a couple, probably all combined, I probably have seen all of those together. We're talking like in the, days worth of viewing added up easily.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Same here. I just recently purchased the Blu-ray set, so I haven't really had time to I watched Friday the 13th because I hadn't actually seen Friday the 13th, the original one, in a while. And then I just have been kind of holding off on the other ones because I've just had a lot of other stuff I've wanted to watch and whatever. And I haven't been in the right mood. But as many of you know that are listening to this episode, tomorrow is Friday the 13th. So this is why we're doing a Friday the 13th themed episode. So I've kind of been holding off a lot of them that I haven't watched recently for that reason. So last night, to get ready for this, was because we just put this together yesterday. So Eugene and I are just kind of going off the cuff here, and we are lathering you up with our knowledge of Friday the 13th, like a
fake stage blood. You're going to get all lathered up with all of that glorious fake stage blood.
Yes, like a great Tom Savini makeup effect. We're going to lather you up with something. So to get ready for this, I was like, well, I want to watch another one of these, the Blu-rays, because the Friday the 13th, the first one, the transfer was gorgeous on that. I was like, awesome, looks great. And so I decided to throw in part 5, which I know you're a fan of part 5.
I adore part 5. I love that movie.
Now, part 5, I'll admit, is one of my least favorite of the series, but it's also one of the films that I've probably... The only film in the series I have seen less than part 5 is Jason Goes to Hell, which I've only seen like twice. Part 5 I've seen maybe 3 times, and I've just, whatever. But I just finished watching Crystal Lake Memories, which kind of gives me a little bit of a different perspective on that film because, they talk so much about all the bullshit they dealt with and how badly that movie got cut by the MPAA.
Yeah.
And so I kind of watched it with a little bit, when I watched it this time, I tried to watch it more as like an Italian giallo than a straight up like Friday the 13th slasher. I tried to look at it more like a Fulci film or a Sovi film or an Argento flick, where it was just because that movie is just batshit crazy. It's weird. It's not a cohesive film, really.
No, not at all. And I think that's part of its charm, is it's so out there, especially after the really, really well-made part 4,
which is my favorite in the series.
Yeah, this is it's so vastly different from that, and it's just so, like, the body count is so high in that movie, and it's like everything that makes those 80s slasher movies so good is in there, and it, like you said, it doesn't quite work, but because it doesn't quite work, it elevates it to trash gold for me, because it's totally trashy.
It works for me on the same level that a film like Gates of Hell works, or even like The Church or stuff like that. Maybe not to quite that level.
No. It's not quite as polished as those
quite
movies.
that level as far as like awesomeness of it,
Yeah.
but watching it with more of that mindset. And this episode is going to be full of spoilers. So if you have never seen these films, just we're giving you a heads up because we're going to talk about stuff. And because, these movies old, some of them. So if you've had your
chance. They're readily available on VHS, Laserdisc, DVD, Blu-ray, streaming. They're out there.
You can find them very cheaply at that. I only paid $20 for the entire 8-film Blu-ray collection.
Yeah, and honestly, what the set that you have is that's the newest set that was just released. I have that same set.
About a month and a half ago that come out.
So those are minus the New Line movies, so that you won't get on the. There's no Jason X, there's no Jason Goes to Hell, there's no remake. But I think that's totally fine. I actually have the other ones. I have them all on Blu-ray.
Well, I have all of the Friday the 13th movies on DVD anyway.
Yeah.
So, but because I enjoy the series so much, I really wanted to upgrade. Because, those are films why I may not watch them every year, all of them every year or whatever. I rarely go an entire year without at least watching a couple of them.
Me too. I'm the exact same way. Every year I have to watch, they typically are 1 through 6. Part 7 was so butchered that that one's getting harder and harder for me to rewatch. And Part 8 with Jason Goes to Manhattan, it's okay, but from the original 8 Paramount movies, that's my least favorite by far. That's my least favorite.
Easily my least favorite. But I have seen that more than like Jason Goes to Hell and Part 5, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Just because I kind of enjoy it almost on a mystery science theater level of what's going on. None of this makes any sense whatsoever. It's not really executed well. And the gore is almost non-existent in that
And it's boring. Like, it's an hour and 40... It's way too long. And it's like, it's Jason. It's Kane Hodder throwing someone off screen again. And then he throws someone off screen again and again. And it's like, that's his method of killing, is throwing people off screen in Jason Takes Manhattan. And other than the guy that gets his head knocked off, the little boxing match thing, which great, by the way.
Which is one of my favorite kills in any of the Friday the 13th films. Just because that's such a great, him and Reggie duking it out,
Yep, that was great. but just like the lead girl in that, I didn't like her. that was not a good movie. In fact, other than Jason X, that's my second to least favorite of all the Friday the 13th movies. All of them. Jason X that's very, very bottom. I don't like that movie. I've tried and I've tried and I've tried, and it's just 90s bad to me.
Yeah, and I fully understand why you don't like it. That film has a very special place in my heart, though.
Oh, really?
Because that was the first Friday the 13th film I ever got to see in the theater.
Interesting, because Jason Goes to Hell was my first one that I ever saw in the theater.
So I kind of give it maybe a little more leeway just because that was the first Friday the 13th I ever got to see in the theater. And it's not good. I mean, it has some interesting concepts, but it's just the PG-13 rating really killed that for me.
Well, it is R. That's an R-rated movie, yeah.
Well, it doesn't feel like
it. Doesn't feel like it. No, it doesn't.
I'm sure it's an R movie because we get android robot nippleless boobs.
Yes.
And that's probably where the R comes from, because it sure to hell ain't from the gore. I mean, the gore is pretty non-existent. Other than it does have, again, probably one of my top 5 Friday the 13th kills in it, which is the cryogenic head freeze smashing on the table.
Best scene of the movie. That was the best scene in the movie. And there was a callback. There was like that hologram thing where they go back to Crystal Lake and
with the sleeping bags.
That was kind of cool, I guess. But even Jason Goes to Hell. At least that one was chock full of gore.
Do you want some pot? Do you want to have premarital sex? We love premarital sex. That killed me. That cracked me up. But
the new line ones, even the remake, I've come around on the remake. It's not that bad.
I enjoy the remake. I think it's I don't really even consider it a remake. And I kind of agreed with this was something they talked about on Crystal Lake Memories was, you know, depending on who you talk to, I almost really consider that almost a modern day continuation of the series. You know what I mean? Because if you look at the way the Friday the 13th films jump around, you know, as far as like, especially like the Tommy Jarvis trilogy, so much of it makes no sense in how they end it. And, you know, you think Tommy's going to be Jason and, you know, and then you have Roy Jason and then you have this. And then, you know what I mean? They change up the mythos of Jason so much that I almost just look at it as it's just a continuation of the series with a more modern day kind of twist to it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And it's for what it is, it's definitely watchable. I've watched it probably, at this point, probably 5 times now since theater. And every time I watch it, I'm like, it wasn't bad. I know that my co-host Eric Marner doesn't care for that movie a whole lot. But I'm the Friday the 13th geek over here, so I'll watch anything Friday the 13th. Now, the last time I did watch Jason X, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to watch that one for a long, long time. But knowing me, it'll be another year or two, and I'm like, shit, I'm going to watch it again, I guess.
I'm trying to think. It was 5 or 6 years ago. I sat down in one day and I watched all of them.
Wow.
I took a whole day and just had a Friday. I like woke up a bit. It was one of those days. It's like the sun was out, the birds were chirping. It was a beautiful day that I should have been doing something productive. And instead I was like, got up, made breakfast, and I was like, I want to watch Friday the 13th. And I threw it on. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to watch part 2. I'm like, you know what? The hell with it. I'm just going to watch them all. So I started at like 10 o'clock. You know, when I first started watching, it was like 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, and I watched them all. The last one, I was like struggling to keep my eyes open, but I was like, I'm watching them all. That would, you know, I watched Freddy vs. Jason, the remake. I mean, I watched all 12 films.
Wow. That's impressive. I've never done that. They're like fine wine for me. I like to space them out, especially the first 6. Those are my slasher classics right there. All 6 of those.
And this is the thing. Tomorrow I'm gonna watch part 3, 7, and probably 7 and 8. I may watch 3, and I may revisit Freddy vs. Jason, because I did see 3 not too long ago, maybe a year or 2 ago, and I also watched for this past Halloween's Horathon. I watched parts 2, 4, and 6.
Okay.
Which are my 3 favorites of the series, so.
Which, seriously, like the first 6 are all, to me, interchangeable as far as, I mean, I have my rankings as far as which ones are my favorite. Like,
other than maybe part 4, which that pretty much is my solid number 1, the rest of them, up until through the first 6, minus 5, because like I said, 5 is growing on me, but it's still not quite there yet.
Yeah.
But so from, you know, parts 1 through 4 and 6, you know, are pretty interchangeable for me, other than part 4 is pretty much at the top of my favorite. Yeah. But I still say Friday the 13th part 1 is probably the best film of the series, like as far as film structure, plot, the whole deal. Like, I think it's the best, you know, best film. Even the gore effects are pretty awesome in that one.
Oh yeah, that's Tom Savini. That's great. That's my favorite one of the entire series. Is the first one. I give it the highest rating out of the series. But as far as like my enjoyment of them, part 4, it goes 4, 6, and 2 for me as far as like my enjoyment level. Crispin Glover Deadfuck is great in part 4.
Why don't you run this through your computer, Ted?
Yeah. I think for me, part 1 is, that is my favorite. That's the first one that I ever watched, actually. This was way, way, way back in the day when, there was a little channel called Channel 19 and, on TV. And that actually became, I guess, then it went to Channel 8, and I think that was the beginnings of Fox. Or I'm not Fox. I somehow it was this offshoot channel, Channel 19, and they actually showed the original Friday the 13th parts 1, 2, and 3 uncut on network television. but they were a small time, TV station. That's how I first watched it, was the uncut versions. Or at least, the R-rated versions, I guess you could say. And I watched those in order, like 1, 2, and 3, and then from there I could not get enough. I'm like, how can I watch more of these Friday the 13th movies? And I don't know if I've ever watched. I've never watched any of the like TV edits of those movies, because I'm sure that they've shown on TV, but I've only ever seen.
I think a couple. I can't remember which ones now, but I know. I want to say Jason Takes Manhattan in maybe part 3. The first times I saw them was on might have been Monster Vision or something like that way back. Because those, I believe, were the first 2 I ever saw in the series. Jason Takes Manhattan actually was the first Friday the 13th film I saw, because I never really got into that series till a little later on, as far as when I started watching them, so I kind of watched them out of order.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. I watched the first 3 in order, and then from there on, it was just whenever and however I could get my hands on a Friday the 13th VHS to rent, I would watch them, and especially part 6. I actually remember, I was a full-fledged Friday the 13th fan when part 6 came out. That was the first one. Actually, the first one that I remember, this was before I saw any of them. I remember, and I think I've talked about this on Movie Freaks already, is my family went to the theater. My mom, my dad, my sister, and I went to watch Baby, which was this dinosaur movie.
The Legend of the
Lost,
or whatever. Yeah.
That was in 1985, and I remember we got to the theater, and it was a 2-screen theater in Dover, Ohio, called the Quaker. And we get there, and some of my dad's coworkers are there, young, kind of cool guys, and he was like, "What are you seeing?" And they're like, "We're watching Friday the 13th Part 5." And Dad was like, "What's that?" He's like, "You should come watch it with us. It's great." And he was, "I'm here with my family." But they, of course, talked him into, this was back when my dad was younger and cool. They actually talked my dad into going to see Friday the 13th Part 5. And I just, as a young kid, I was young enough I was old enough, I guess, to realize that was something that I probably shouldn't see, but I really want to see it. And I drilled him with questions after the movie, like, what was that movie about? And he just said, it was a killer and a guy gets murdered in an outhouse and you'll never watch it. And that was part 5, and now I love part 5.
Now, being psychoanalytical about it, now we know why Eugene loves this, because it was a forbidden fruit. It was the apple hanging from the tree, It was
that, and the same thing happened to Rambo First Blood Part 2. He did the same thing with the same group of guys for those 2 movies, and especially Friday the 13th Part 5. I'm like, this is not fair. I don't like that you're seeing something that looks really cool, and I'm watching this fake dinosaur crap over here on the screen beside you. And anyway, but I remember after that, then when Part 6 came out, I remember the trailer when it came out. I'm like, how can I see that movie? It was Friday the 13th Part 6, and then shortly after, then when it came out on VHS, then I would go over to my friend's house, and his mom would let him watch anything that he would want. So we would get stacks and stacks of horror movies. And anytime we would try to get horror movies, there had to be a Friday the 13th in there as well. So on top of seeing those on Channel 19, the first 3, whenever I would go to my friend's house, we would always get a Friday the 13th movie. It doesn't matter which one. One of the first 8. Well, the first 6, but then as we got a little bit older, then 7 would come out, then 8. But it was the first 8. Those were the ones that we would run on VHS and watch over and over and over and over.
See, now the majority of them had already come out by the time I had got into horror, which was 89, 90 is when I really, started getting into horror. But I didn't really watch a ton of horror other than stuff I saw on TV until I was in high school. So it was a little later on before I really, started diving deeper into stuff and watching all of, everything. And then it was like game on. Then it was like I'm watching everything I can get a hold of type deal, but.
Did you, so as far as Part 6 goes, I love Part 6. I think that my, right now, currently, 1 is my favorite. Then I think Part 5 for the craziness of it, and then 6, and those are kind of interchangeable. I love Part 6 so much, And then it's like, it's splitting hairs as far as where parts 2, 3, and 4 fall into line there. They're all so close. But part 6, I always thought that was like a precursor to what Wes Craven would do in Scream. Because it is a bit self-referential in a kind of a witty,
well, it almost breaks that fourth wall down, but not quite, it's like self-referential, but it doesn't do it in a real, like, super obvious way. Like, say in Deadpool when they break down the fourth wall or street, it's kind of just below the Deadpool being self-aware, but...
Yeah.
And the other thing that I always have loved about 6 is the sliding RV scene where Jason's standing on top of the RV and it's on fire, and that is such a cool shot. I've always wanted like a poster of that because that's
Alice Cooper music playing in the background.
Man behind the mask playing in the background. Yeah.
Part 6 is great. That's a great slasher movie.
Oh yeah, and it's not that bloody as far as the Friday the 13th goes. I mean, there's blood in it, but as far as like gory kills go, it's kind of toned back, I think.
Yeah, it is. It is.
But it has, and the other thing that I really love about that, and I was so tickled that they talked about it in Crystal Lake Memories, which you can watch on Shudder if you have a Shudder subscription, or if you don't have Shudder, you can get a free 7-day subscription for that right now. And Crystal Lake Memories is on there. If you are a Friday the 13th fan, just be prepared to buckle down for 7 hours because it is long. But I've
watched it twice. It's so good. It's so good.
If you're a fan of the series, it is definitely worth watching it. I did it in 2 sittings. So, which is good because I usually have a hard time making it through a movie in one sitting, let alone something that, long. Breaking up into 2 like 3.5 hour segments was... that's a feat for me. So.
Yeah. I agree.
But yeah, one of the things they talked about in that was, and I'm glad they did, was all the little nods like, Cunningham Road and, we're going to call the sheriffs over in Carpenter and Karloff's Garage and all this different stuff. So if you really look at stuff, there's little nods to other directors. And there was something about Mick Garris in there. And,
yep. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
There's like a bunch of different little things that they make nods to and reference all this different stuff. So it's really cool. And they reference just many things, like we said, the fourth wall stuff where it's kind of like, I've seen enough slasher movies to know a guy in a hockey mask in front of the car out in the middle of the woods isn't good,
Yeah. Yeah, I always thought that the first 8 Friday the 13th movies, it's so cool to see the transition of the 80s, like the 80s styles of how people look and dress and the music and all that. Like, obviously the first 4 are like the classic early 80s slasher template. And then we get to part 5, and then it gets to be more of a hair metal type feel that is really embraced in 6 and then 7 and even 8. Like then those are very much like, it reminds me of a glam metal type feel like that, like how the 80s was going. Oh yeah. With bands like Poison and Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses. It just had that, especially part 6, 6 on, but 5 was the beginning of more of that, mid to late 80s hair metal type feel going on, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You had the new wave girl doing her robot dance, to His Eyes by Pseudo Echo, which is an amazing song. I listen to that often. Going back to 5, like I said, is I definitely appreciated it more watching it with that mindset of not, necessarily like a straight up Friday the 13th film, but a little bit more of just kind of a wacky slasher, almost like a Giallo type deal. And I definitely enjoyed it more watching it that way. So
it's definitely the trashiest of the bunch, the all 8 Paramount movies. I think it's by far the trashiest.
Well,
It's
I mean,
just-
the guy that directed it was a porn director before.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. So.
and I believe that there was some cocaine on that set. And
I'm sure the guy doing lines in his car, Lana, get out here, with a forecast of flurries up your nose,
Oh, that was so funny.
That probably wasn't, fake. That was probably, I'm guessing that might have been some real blow that he was doing there in the car. But
and the little kid, the black kid, Reggie. I
Reggie the
loved his
Reckless.
scream. He screams so great in that movie. It's like it's the most high pitched girl scream, and it's so good. It's everything about that movie doesn't work, and that's why it works.
Now I have
me.
a question, Eugene. When you and the wife are sitting on the couch, do you look at each other and go, "Ooh, baby"?
Ooh, baby. Nope. Especially if
such
we're
a
eating burritos and when
romantic
one of us has
scene.
to drop a deuce.
Yeah, when you've had too many enchiladas,
Yeah, that's right. That scene is so funny and random, and that's not the only. That's not the only poop scene in that movie. The two leather dudes in the car are like,
Oh
wow,
yeah, because
that's...
he has to go. Yeah, he has to go to the bathroom, right?
Yeah.
I
would love to see not only that one, but all of them with all of the gore cut that was cut out. I wish so bad we could see what these movies really were like, because I know, especially Part 5, that has got a high body count, and I know that pretty much all the kills were neutered.
What when they were talking on the Crystal Lake Memories, there was something like 40 minutes of footage cut out of that film.
That's a lot. Now that would be a way too long of a movie, but like just put the gore back in.
Well, right,
it
but
can
I'm
still
saying,
be nonsensical. Put the gore back in.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there was stuff that needed to be cut out for story reasons, but I'm just saying that's a lot of stuff to cut out of a film. I mean,
It is.
So even if you added 2 minutes worth of gore and the actual effect stuff, and I mean, it would be kind of cool. But that was also, if I remember right, that was also about the time home video was just kind of starting to kind of take root.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sure if that film had come out 2 or 3 years later, there probably would have been an unrated cut on home video.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, once we got to the New Line years, that's when Jason Goes to Hell got the uncut release or the unedited release, and not Freddy versus Jason was really gory, and even the remake got the killer cut, whatever. So I mean, there has been alternate versions that have popped up on those, but the Paramount ones, other than Part 1, there was a couple scenes in Part 1, like the Blu-ray has the extended Kevin Bacon arrow in the next scene, and then
which is glorious.
Pamela Voorhees.
That is definitely in my top 3 kills.
Top 3 kills. I love Part 2's machete in the face, wheelchair guy going backwards. I love that scene.
Yeah.
It's just hardcore, and especially Potato Sack Head Jason in Part 2 is great. I love how he goes through different phases in all these movies, but Part 2 with Potato Sack Head, it's not quite as cool as the hockey mask, but it's kind of cool in its own little one-off sort of way, But now, as far as editing goes, I know that Part 5 was butchered heavily, but I think that New Blood was probably the most edited. Because that movie, of all of them, that one there to me feels the most PG-13. Other than a couple of F words, like this is total PG-13 rated stuff, and I think that's why it's harder for me to watch that one.
Well, see now and I haven't seen a New Blood in quite a while since I did the marathon and watched them all. So I'm getting old. I'm having trouble recalling some of the stuff in that one, but yeah, geez, I can't remember a whole lot about Part 7 other than the
there's the weed eater scene, but that was completely butchered to nothing. At least Kane Hodder, this is Kane Hodder's first stint as Jason, and you could tell, I'm like, wow, we went from the regular looking Jason to professional wrestling looking Jason. This dude is huge.
And Kane Hodder has always been my favorite Jason, even though he's probably in my 4 least favorite Friday the 13th films.
Me too. He is Jason. To me, that's Jason Voorhees, is Kane Hodder.
And I was so pissed off when they didn't cast him in Freddy versus Jason. that really, really bummed me out that he didn't get to play Jason in that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you feel about it. I love Freddy versus Jason.
Good movie.
I thought it was well done. You know, it really didn't give either one of them like a big advantage as far as like who won the Freddy versus Jason thing. You know, I think Jason may have come out slightly ahead, but then you get that ending scene, you know, with him holding Freddy's head and you get the little wink, you know, it's kind of, but I really enjoyed that. I thought that was a fun film. That was another one I went and saw that in the theater when it came out, and I was like, I like that.
I saw that with Eric. Marner and a whole bunch of dads with their really, really young kids, because I guess Freddy versus Jason means bring your 7-year-old to the theater day, I guess. I don't know.
Hey,
we were stunned.
Best way to break your 7-year-old into, you know, the Friday the 13th land. In Nightmare on Elm Street, we're going to break into 2 franchises at once, son. One is a child that was murdered, that drowned, and the other one is a pedophile child murderer. You know,
sure. Yeah.
Good family entertainment right there.
Exactly. You know? Yep. But you've seen them all. The New Blood, though, every time I watch that, that's the main one that I think, like, what could have been, because and you've seen the Crystal Lake Memory, so you know that that thing was cut so much. And John Carl Buechler, the director, you know, he went to great lengths to say how it's almost like he came on board and he was a special effects makeup artist himself, and it was just like the MPAAA just came down really, really hard on his movie, and it shows. It totally shows.
Well, I mean, and I think that was if I remember right, that was really at the height of the whole MPAA madness when they were banning everything and making, you know, really making everything being toned down, and because we went through a period there of about 7 or 8 years where the gore really got toned down. Even like the band stuff, when you talk about bands like Cannibal Corpse and stuff like that, you know, they Twisted Sister, I mean, Anthra, any bands that were, or movies that were seen as aggressive or not friendly were really, really attacked and butchered and
agreed.
Know. So, I think that was really at the height of the whole thing, which is probably why they really, really came down on that hard. And it sucks. We're never, ever going to get to see that footage because it's gone.
I know. Yeah, you're right. I'm hoping, I know that New Blood, John Carl Buechler pretty much said that footage was destroyed, but I'm still holding out hope that at least the footage for the first 6, somewhere along the line, some of that cut footage will show up. Now, I know that part 6 wasn't that cut, but there were certain scenes. Yeah. But part 2, they all had their moments where stuff was cut out that we all want to see that footage. And so I'm hoping that it surfaces sometime. Come on, Scream Factory, dig through the Paramount vaults, find the stuff, pay a pretty penny for it, and we'll buy it.
Oh, yeah. It won't be in the Paramount vaults. It will be Timmy Smith in Bucksfield, Oregon, has a canister copy of all the uncut footage from Friday the 13th Part 3, type deal. And we paid $10,000 to secure it to use for the film, you know, to restore this. And then we're going to give it back to him type deal.
They would be whoever finds the uncut footage for any of these movies, especially the first 8. 7 is a lost cause, but the first 6 mainly, they are sitting on a gold mine. There is rabid horror fans out there that will pay a pretty penny. I am one of them. Yep, I am one of them. These are like the holy grail of slasher, 80s slasher, American 80s slasher movies. It's like this is the template right here that was set.
Okay, so this is I'm going to throw this out there. You know, what if John Carl Buechler is just saying that footage was destroyed, or he was told it was destroyed, but it's really not. Somebody has it, and they've forgotten that they even have it type deal. And, you know, something's going to happen and somebody's kid's going to be going through stuff and like, oh, what's this? Oh, this is the original uncut version of Friday the 13th Part 7, A New Blood. Oh, shit, you know.
Yeah. That would be fantastic.
And then Eugene begins the construction of the shrine in his backyard to said
Oh,
person.
and seriously, like part 7, there is a good movie in there. There is a good movie. It's cut so much that it makes it difficult for me to watch because it's like this is so watered down and just
Well, I mean, this is the thing. Oh, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, there is really, as far as great cinema, I don't think any Friday the 13th films fall into the great cinema category. What they are is they're stupid fun, kind of, we get to see all kinds of really cool gore effects and, type films. But for the most part, they were always really consistent, and they were good films in servicing what they were trying to do. The only one I think that really fell flat on its face was Jason Takes Manhattan.
Yeah. I agree.
Even Jason X, I feel like there was a good film in there. It's not really didn't quite hit, the beats it should have or whatever. Like I said, I still enjoy Jason X, but, out of the first 8, I think the only one that really failed miserably was part 8. And I kind of, like I said, even though that's my least favorite, I do kind of enjoy that on like that Mystery Science Theater level bad level of it's.
Yeah, I can still watch part 8. I mean, part 8, honestly, part 8 is better than a lot of dumped onto video horror movies now. At least it had a budget, it had a production, shot on film, and, we still have Kane Hodder. It's got a couple good scenes. I'll take that over a bunch of the junk that comes out now.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you come across that, for on your show as a roulette, you would probably be ecstatic.
Oh yeah, that would be a solid roulette pick on Movie Freaks, definitely.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. Eugene would be going, I am going out and buying this one on Blu-ray through Arrow tomorrow when it comes out.
Yeah, boy, we can only wish that these would be released by Arrow or Scream Factory or any one of those. Having said that, like you said, what we do have on Blu-ray, though, the theatrical cuts, they look really good. They sound really good. I'm happy with them. And if that's the only versions we're ever going to get, then, hey, we at least have them in high definition.
And there's good extras on them so far.
Yeah, there is.
I've seen, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we've got Crystal Lake Memories, and there's a plethora of stuff out there about these movies. And I'm sure that Paramount knows that these are moneymakers. They're moneymakers. I mean, they didn't cost much, and every new release, us horror fans, we're going to buy them, I've got, in my basement, I have a wall of posters, parts 1 through 6, Friday the 13th, part 1 through 6, downstairs in my basement, all in a row, all framed. And they were like, well, that's a long story, but I found like custom artwork online, and I actually made the posters myself. Like there was a custom making poster site. I found cool images, and I actually made these posters myself. Oh, so cool. They're kind of like now obviously I did not design them, but I made them into posters because I liked them so much. A lot of them actually come from Fright Rags.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So it's actually their shirts that they had. Yeah. And I would just find JPEG images online, and I would take those JPEG images, and I would go to this site where you can make posters out of images. And so I did that. And those shirts are long out of print from Fright Rags, but if those ever come available again, I'm going to get some of those things. Yeah. So those are the posters that I have hanging in the basement. I like them so much. Now I wanted to ask you real quick. The last time you watched Friday the 13th Part 3, have you ever watched the really hokey 3D, the blue-red glasses version that's available?
No, because I don't have a 3D television or any way to watch them in actual 3D, so I've never got to see the actual 3D version of it, which I heard it's actually quite good in 3D. Like those effects work well for what they are, I guess, from what I've heard anyway.
They do. And here, so interesting story here is, this is a while ago now. This is after the first Blu-ray came out. So there was an initial, I think 3 or 4 came out, like parts 1, 2, 3, and maybe 4, or maybe it was the first 3 came out on Blu-ray. And this is before the big 10 limited, set came out that's out of print now. But some guy online went and took that part 3 Blu-ray, and he made a legit 3D version of it. Not the blue red glasses 3D, but like real D 3D. And I don't know how he did it, but I have a copy of it. Where you actually put the plastic, like what you would see in the theater, and you put them on, and it's not that red tint thing. It's legit 3D, and it is so cool. It's so cool. The quality, it's Blu-ray quality, and it's still shaky at best, just with whatever he did, but it's legit 3D. So when the guy's doing the yo-yo, I'm like, wow, that is popping right into my face there. And the beginning, the disco music and
I was going to
the
say,
boards.
when the eye shoots out at you.
Mm-hmm. That's all there, but it's really cool. That's one of my prized possessions, even though it's not an official release. Some guy made it, and I got a copy of it, so it's really cool.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Stuff like that's really, really cool to have. I have, I have my Jason mask on the wall in between my posters over to my right, and then to my left, I have my horror headliners, which is Jason Voorhees and Freddy Krueger and Leatherface. So, which is like they're like 9 to 10 inch, figure, like almost like the pop vinyls, but they're like 9 and 10 inches. They're like giant pop vinyls, and they're like limited edition. So I have all 3 of those up there, and that's pretty much it for my Friday the 13th swag in the house. But I don't have. I've been eyeballing the original Friday the 13th poster, because I really would like to have that, but I will be honest, I am pretty much completely out of room in my office to put any more posters up. So until I either get a bigger area to put stuff up, I can't really upgrade, because I actually have an entire tube of really cool posters and I can't put any more up. So I'm just kind of, not the full size 40 by 27s, which is what mostly all my posters are. I do a lot of Comic-Cons and stuff like that with my books, and there was a guy a couple years ago that had 11 by 17 prints, and they were already framed in these like hard plastic case type things, and which is perfect because you can put many posters up that way. So I bought one for Them, the movie Them, about the giant ants, Critters. I gotta look up my thing. They Live, and The Last Man on Earth with Vincent Price, because I love all 4 of those posters. But at the time, I was like, I only have so much money to spend, so I want to get these 4, because they weren't bad. They were like 4 for $20, and but he had all the Friday the 13th one sheets in those 11 by 7. And if I would have had the money, I would have bought all of those, because I would love to have those, have like my wall above my laptop. Just, I would take down the few things I have up there other than my signed Tony Todd picture, and, make that my Friday the 13th wall and put my mask like in the middle of it around him.
Yep. I like that. Now, so I'm curious, of all of the slasher villains out there, especially from the 80s, I guess bleeding over there you go, bleeding over a little bit into this, into the 70s. What would be your favorite? I mean, we've got Michael Myers, we've got Freddy Krueger, Jason.
Jason's hands down I mean, I have never been a giant Friday the 13th fan, but I will admittedly, I'll admit I've only seen like 4 of the Nightmare on Elm Street films. Outside, I've seen 1, 2, 3, and part the one where it's later on and it's supposed to be like real life. I can't remember what part. I think that might have been 6 or 7.
Oh, a New Nightmare?
Yes, A New Nightmare.
Okay.
And I only saw that once. I've never been a huge Nightmare fan when I originally saw them, but I did go back last year and watch A Nightmare on Elm Street for the first time in a long time, and I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I did what I remembered enjoying it. So I bought the first 4 films on a 4-pack, So at some point I'm going to watch those, and I'll probably pick up the other 4 on, there's another 4-pack with the other 4 films. So I'll probably pick those up at some point. It would probably go for me. It would go Jason, Michael, Leatherface, Freddy, as far as, my mass killers go.
Yeah. And I think for me, Jason is definitely number 1, but if you throw in Billy from Silent Night, Deadly Night, Billy is he's the true number 1 slasher for me. But, if you take him out and it's kind of the main series of the classic, slasher movies, it would be Jason.
The big 4 of horror, of slashers,
yes,
as I like to call it, basically. Yeah.
Yep. It would be Jason. And then I would say, because I adore the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre so much, it would probably be Leatherface, then Myers, then Freddy. But they're all great. I love them. I love these. This is my groove here is 80s slasher.
Yeah.
It's something about them. In fact, last night, after my wife and I got back from watching Quiet Place at the theater, she wanted to watch something on TV, and I'm like, I'm going to go watch one more movie before I go to bed. So I went and watched Slumber Party Massacre for the umpteenth time. I'm like, Quiet Place was really good. It was classy horror, and now I need to get my junk food fill, and that would be something like Slumber Party Massacre.
I enjoyed the hell out of A Quiet Place, not to deviate too much off Friday the 13th, but yeah, A Quiet Place is definitely lives up to the hype that everybody's given it, I think, and then some. It actually was better than I expected.
Yeah, actually, your review was one of the reasons why I'm like, okay, you know what? We don't get to the theater that much. My wife and I watch movies, but I'm like, it's 90 minutes long. You gave it a really big. Everybody is giving this movie high marks. I'm like, let's go see this, and that was very worthy of a theatrical experience, especially if you get it, if you can watch it in a big screen with booming loud sound, and the audience is actually
perfect.
Yeah,
if you watch,
I appreciated that our crowd was really respectful and was not obnoxious.
Well, as I said in my review that's on the Average Joe's Drive-In Facebook page, which you guys will get to actually hear the review next week on the show when I do my review cast, but a little hint of that review, as I said, that is probably one of the most respectful theater crowds I have ever seen. You could hear people eating their popcorn and taking a drink and moving their straw because the theater was dead silent. And it worked because there is, and this isn't spoiling anything, there's maybe about 8 lines of dialogue in the entire film. It's pretty much a silent movie with a score, in effects. But
so good.
And it's so good.
Yeah. I like that it's essentially like a lower budget, horror movie, but it's elevated not just by the cool creatures, but by an A-list cast. Like Emily Blunt, that's an A-list actress right there. And John Krasinski, he's a really, really good actor. So this could have not worked had it been in the wrong hands. It could have just been another forgettable creature feature, but, and I know here we are getting into Quiet Place, but it was a legit, believe the hype on that one. That's a really good movie.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm sure Eugene will be reviewing this on the Movie Freaks very soon.
Yes.
And I will, on next week's review cast, which will be next Thursday, I will be talking about it. There is no review cast this week, obviously, because we're going to have this Friday the 13th episode that you're not, that we're recording at this very second. See, fourth wall thing. And we're being self-aware. To give everybody a quick heads up before we get back into the Friday the 13th thing. Monday, my guest had to reschedule, and I don't know when I'm going to have them on, but it kind of worked out last minute. They had to cancel, so I didn't have time to get anybody else in. And I also didn't really, because I've had to do a bunch of review casts lately, because they're people, it's that time of year. A lot of people have been sick. I've been sick. So I haven't had my normal my interview type episode. So I've kind of made up with extra review casts. So I've got to catch back up on my watched films so I can kind of, do those and not just be constantly behind. So I decided, this week, I got thinking of it yesterday. I'm like, well, shit, I'm going to have Eugene. I'm going to see if Eugene wants to do a Friday the 13th episode this week. And
of course, here I am.
And I'm like, I figured Eugene would be like, no, I don't really like Friday the 13th. I think I would much rather watch the Land Before Time series and,
Never.
all 49 films of the Land Before Time series. And
no, there might be better slasher movies out there, but something about those first 6 they're so good, and they're so a part of my history. And like I've grown up with these movies, like from a teenager to now. They're movies that I watch every single year, and they take me back to that golden time in the 80s where, I was this awkward, pimply faced kid that, like, I'm awkward, but when I'm watching stuff like this is me. I love this stuff here. And I'm now in my 40s and I'm still that weird, awkward, pimply faced kid.
He's the 40-year-old version of that one, but yeah.
That's right.
I could say I'm still in my 30s for 3 more months, 4 more months, but, I'm going to milk that 4 months too, damn it. But
yeah, you're only as old as you feel. I
feel like I'm 80 some mornings, Eugene. I don't know if that's a good analogy, But
watching some of these movies, like last night watching Slumber Party Massacre, maybe it makes me feel young again. These silly, cheesy movies from my youth. I love them, and it's turn the brain off, enjoy yourself type of unpretentious fun.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
So
the real quick, we were talking about Part 5. There's a great song about Part 5 by the band Wolfie's Just Fine called A New Beginning, which is the title of the film. So go on YouTube and type, look up Wolfie's Just Fine and A New Beginning and watch that video, because it is gloriously awesome if you are a fan of the Friday the 13th films. And the song's pretty good too, so that helps.
Yeah.
But one thing I wanted to say when you were asking about my favorite slasher franchises is the reason I like the Friday the 13th series the best out of all those is I think out of all of those franchises, it's the most consistent as far as all the films are watchable and enjoyable, even the bad ones, to me anyway, in that series, where that's maybe not so much the case with Halloween.
Agreed. Yep. All of them. Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Leatherface, like Texas Chainsaw. They all have some duds that are really hard to watch, but you're right, especially the Paramount Jasons. For me, they're easy to watch. Even the New Line ones. I don't like Jason X, but I dig Jason Goes to Hell. I dig the remake and Freddy versus Jason. It's just a great series.
Part of the problem with, for me, you kind of have almost this, you have this mythical, character of Jason, which you also do in Michael Myers. There's this whole mythos about him, but his mythos is so simple, and even Michael Myers' mythos is very simple in premise, but man, there have been some turds in that series, especially later on in that series. They kind of got really bad. But now I enjoyed the Halloween remakes, which I don't know if you did or not. I enjoyed those for what they were. But but just saying, that's part of the reason Friday the 13th and Jason is my favorite is the fact that I like Freddy, but I always thought he was kind of cheesy. He was kind of a cornball. Out of the 3, he's the only one that really ever talks. Michael silent, Jason silent, Leatherface.
Leatherface is this big grunting dude.
Yeah. He looks like he should have been playing linebackers for the Patriots or whoever, but now something I want to talk about, because it does kind of relate to Friday the 13th, is it's the modern day slasher franchise, and that is the Hatchet series. And the reason I say it ties into Friday the 13th is because Kane Hodder also plays Victor Crowley, and he plays Victor Crowley's father. So,
yes,
Kane actually has some acting stuff going on in that film other than just playing Victor Crowley. I enjoy the hell out of the Hatchet movies for what they are, kind of in the same way I enjoy the Friday the 13th movies, with the exception of I think the Hatchet films are way more over the top gory than the Friday the 13th films. There's kind of almost a comical element to them in that fact that they are a bit over the top.
Agreed. I really, really like Hatchet's part 1 and 2. 3 and 4, not as much, but they're still watchable. Part 3 and 4, just, I don't know. They set the bar so high with the first two, with the gore quotient, and then 3 and 4, it's like, well, how do we top this? And then it started to just get, too over the top. However, I love how each one of them ends so abruptly. Like, we're talking mid-sentence, cut to black. I love that. I think that's brilliant. And I really like, the first one has the opening with the Marilyn Manson song, and then the second, because I know that Adam Green's a big metalhead, and then the second one opens with a Ministry song.
Oh yeah,
and I'm not
just one fix. It opens up.
Yes,
with
and I
fix.
love that. I think those two intros for parts 1 and 2 are really, really good.
Which
the first two are good.
I want to throw something in real quick about the Ministry thing, because it's funny that he uses that, because my old band In the Kingdom of Nightmares, we used to come out when we headline shows to the beginning of Psalm 69 off that same album. The big
that's a great album.
That big operatic swelling.
Yep.
I think my heart is being touched by Christ. Oh, louder, praise Jesus. That's what we used to come out onto stage. And then we used to break into our first song right when it kind of broke into the Ministry song, when it would end as, now it's time for us to give a little love back to God.
Yep. Oh, I remember that. That was their big album.
Yeah.
Such a
that
good
was
album.
The album that introduced me to Ministry. I had never heard them before that. So
yeah, me too. Me too.
But yeah, so I really enjoy, because honestly, it's been about 10 years now, 9-10 years since we got the Friday the 13th remake continuation.
Yeah.
So my hope is kind of dwindling for a new Friday the 13th film. It really is. I'm kind of losing hope that we're going to really see any more Friday the 13th films in the traditional sense.
I don't know. Here's my thought on that is like, I don't know why this is so difficult. Like, take $3 million and set it in the 80s and just Jason is at Crystal Lake and he's murdering obnoxious teens or college kids that are, just do that. Just do that. It will make a lot of money. I don't know what the problem is. It's like, do it for cheap. You don't need much money. Practical effects, make it on film. This is an easy thing to do.
Which I don't understand why so many people dislike the reboot, continuation, because that's basically what they did. Other than they had the little bit of a backstory of him trying to find,
which was fine.
Which was fine. It kind of made sense, but I've heard a few. Well, I don't like that one, and blah blah. It's like, how do you not like that one? It's like stupidly gory. It's got
obnoxious characters in it, which they all have
the obnoxious characters, your likable characters. The guy Tyler Mane that played Jason was great as Jason.
He was really good in that. Like, he was a good Jason.
He was a great Jason. I
liked him much better than I liked him better than Freddy versus Jason guy, and he was okay too. But
Ken Kurtzinger was the Friday the But yeah, Tyler Mane. It's like he kind of took you can tell, I really think, I think, and that was one thing that was interesting on that Crystal Lake Memories, was he's a huge Friday the 13th fan. And he knows like all the Jasons by name, and, the guys that played him, and the Ted Wright, and, Kane Hodder and Ari Lehrer and all those guys. So he kind of has respect and reverence for what they did with the character, but he very much took a page out of Kane Hodder's book, I think, in the way he played Jason, which is why I think I really dug his Jason so much.
Yeah. I agree. For what it is, I thought that the remake was good. I think that they could even improve on that one. I think it was a bit too long. Yeah. But just like, especially if you set it in the early 80s, like literally make a movie that is set in the early 80s. and have it feel like that. Like Ty West's House of the Devil. That movie,
which I still have not seen. I still haven't seen any Ty West films, as far as I know. He's
a great director, but that one especially, of all of the movies that are trying to feel like an early '80s movie, that one there nails it. Rob Zombie's movies do to a certain extent, but especially House of the Devil. I'm like, that movie, that looks legit like it was shot in 1981 or whatever.
Nice, yeah,
but just do something like that again, and I would love that. Now, recently, I watched a slasher movie that just came out. You might be interested in this. It's called Terrifier, and it's about this killer clown, and it is low on story, but extremely high on gore. And it's just a crazy killer clown is offing people in a warehouse. The end. 85 minutes long. It's on streaming sites, although it's, you have to either rent it or buy it. It's not like a Netflix thing right now, but that was a good one. Like, it reminded me a bit of a non-comical version of Hatchet.
Yeah.
In that they're like, the gore is not played for laughs. The gore it's pretty hardcore.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I was thinking, I kind of wanted to get back on this real quick was, holy cow, having a brain cramp. Give me 1 second. I'll get back on my train of thought here real quick.
Yeah, we should maybe be circling back to Friday the 13th. We keep veering off into
I was getting back to Friday the 13th, and I forgot what the hell I was going to say now. But, we were talking about the length on, the remake. Well, it was basically like, because there was basically like a prologue like you would get in a book, because they had to kind of end cap the story to get that whole little section. So you almost got like a film and a half out of that, really, because it's kind of two separate stories that kind of intertwine. But that's one thing I always loved about the Friday the 13th movies is they're all short. Most of them are at tops an hour and a half. They're usually between an hour and 15 and hour and a half. And that's what I always liked about them. If I was in the mood for something just cheesy and gory and, that great fun slasher type film, I could throw one on and it's not going to suck up 2 hours of my time. And that's the problem, I think, when you're talking about all these reboots, as far as, reboots, love them or hate them, take them or leave them. I personally in the category is I'm sick to death of reboots, but they're going to happen whether I want them to or not, so I might as well check them out. And I was in that as we talked on the, the Christmas special, which the Christmas crossover special about the Black Christmas remake, I didn't watch that for the longest time because when that came out, I was so sick and over remakes. I'm like, make something new. Please, just make something new. We don't need to keep rebooting every possible movie that come out, because they have rebooted some and remade some really weird films that just didn't need to be remade. I can understand with some of the franchise ones because, they're kind of trying to put a fresh perspective, and if they want to keep making them, they kind of have a well to go to as far as story and, we can start combining. Maybe we'll combine parts 4, 5, and 6 into the Tommy Jarvis trilogy into one film, or there's things they can do with them without really having to spend a lot of money to redo anything. They can kind of, drain the well dry as far as that stuff goes.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to see it like a Friday the 13th that is a Tommy Jarvis type.
We could get the Quentin Tarantino Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2 whole bloody affair, but it's like the Tommy Jarvis Chronicles or whatever, where it's those 3 films basically is one giant supercut.
Yeah. I'm down for that.
Because the way Part 5 starts with him in that whole dream sequence, you could transition right from 4 to 6. 4 to 5 without having to do any sort of... Yeah. The only one you really might have to do a little bit of maybe a little small section is between 5 and 6.
Yeah, especially because they had to get a different actor So you're not going from a young kid to older guy Tommy Jarvis like Corey Feldman to the guy in part 5, but
and then the guy, even the guy in part 5 to Tom Matthews. You've got that. You might have to do a little bit of something there to kind of make that work, or but you could go the whole route of where he's just sleeping, and then you cut. So as far as everyone knows, he was in a coma, and then he comes out of it as Tom Matthews.
Yeah, and then you've got your part 6.
So Eugene, we need to make a super fan cut of the Tommy Jarvis Chronicles.
Yes, the Tommy, complete with all the deleted scenes.
Yes,
there we go. Into one,
the 6-hour magnum opus to Tommy Jarvis.
Yep, I like that.
And did you watch Never Hike Alone?
Yes, I did. I thought that was pretty good for what it was, and I liked that Tom Matthews had a little cameo in the end. I thought that was pretty cool.
I thought it was really well done for how they did it, and kind of a found footagey type thing. And but what I liked about it, there was a lot of reverence for the original films and little nods to different things that had happened in those films, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. I've really been considering backing the Kickstarter to get a Blu-ray of that.
Oh, so there's a Kickstarter going on with, I didn't know that. Oh,
yes. Go to Never Hike Alone. Look it up because it's going to be ending pretty soon, if I remember right, because they can only do so many copies of it. Because Paramount, I guess, liked it so much, they gave them permission to make Blu-rays and sell them to recoup their cost of them to make the film.
Oh, that's cool.
But they can't make any money off it. They can only make up to like a certain amount. And last I knew, they were pretty close to hitting that goal. So it's a pretty cool little package. So you might want to check that out, because I know I've been thinking about doing that just because I did enjoy it. And I watched it on YouTube.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it was good. Big thumbs up. That's one that I'll watch again, I'm sure. It's Friday the 13th, so of course I have to watch it over and over and over and over, even if it's a fan film type thing. I've seen a lot worse.
So to kind of wrap up the Friday the 13th discussion, as we're easily well over an hour at this point.
Yeah.
Not that I figured that was going to be hard to do, but top 5, not necessarily kills, but top 5 Friday the 13th moments for you.
Leading to number 1, I would say number 5 would be, just give me a second here. Oh, okay. Number 5 would be the, what's his name? The, corkscrew in the hand from, part 4.
Oh, Crispin Glover getting the corkscrew.
Crispin Glover. Yeah.
Oh, that scene right there makes me cringe every time. Hand wounds in general, and there's lots of hand wounds in part 4. So
and then Jason hangs Crispin Glover out by the door, and then he rips him off the door, and that was a great scene.
He pretty much crucifies him and then rips him down. Yeah, and we also he gets the machete through the fingers. That's right at the end of it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
but that would be number 5. Number 4 would be let's go with part 6. The the 3 we of course don't get to see much, but I love when the paintball scene where Jason takes them one full swath and off with the 3 heads. I thought that was brilliant. Yeah. Number 3 would be from part 2 with that would be, I guess, the machete in the wheelchair-bound guy. That should be number 2. Yeah, we're just going to put that at number 3. And then the second one would be probably from part 5. And I really liked the outhouse scene. That was just with the outhouse and the big spike through the outhouse. Yeah. And then number one for me is got to be from part 1, and that would be the arrow in the neck of Kevin Bacon.
Oh, yeah. Those are all good ones. I would say my 5 favorite moments from Friday the 13th is number 5 is when Jason gets the mask from Shelley in part 3.
Uh-huh.
That's because it's such an iconic moment, because that's the moment Jason really becomes Jason as we know Jason.
Yeah.
So even though, like I said, it's in the middle of the pack as far as my favorites, but that moment is such a cool moment. Number 4 would be the Crispin Glover dance scene in part 4. Just because it's such a that whole scene, not just the dance scene, but that whole scene is just awesome.
Agreed. I love that scene.
My third favorite moment of the series is the boxing match from Jason Takes Manhattan on top of the rooftop. I adore that. Number 2 would be Arrow through the throat of Kevin Bacon. And this one is a difficult one for me, but it is and it isn't. It's not even a kill, but we talked about it earlier, is Jason standing on top of the sliding burning RV in part 6. Because that just such a cool shot,
Yes.
When I think of Friday the 13th, that's usually like the first thing that pops in my head is him standing, just looking menacing as the RV slides and is on fire. That's just such a cool scene. And
yeah, I could even do like top 30 scenes from a Friday the 13th movie, because now I'm thinking about it and I'm like, there's
That's
so
why I
many,
wanted to
but
just no warning off the top of your head, because I just wanted to see.
Yeah, those are the first 5 that popped into my head. Like when I'm just thinking, like, okay, what are some scenes that I love from Friday the 13th, especially the kills? Those are the ones that pop into my head.
And much like the Friday the 13th series in general, that would probably change depending on what day you ask me about it. So
yeah, me too.
And what
mood
I'm in, and all that. So.
The Kevin Bacon arrow in the neck, though, that is going to probably always be in my top 5 moments from a Friday the 13th movie. Yeah. That's great.
The boxing, those 5 that I reeled off, I think really pretty much are my favorite 5. But there's some that are pretty close there, Like I said, the freezing of the head in Jason X and smashing that off. And then there's the sleeping bag scene from part 7. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of just moments that I remember from those films, and so yeah, thanks for coming on, man. I know it's such short notice and shooting the shit with me about Friday the 13th, because it's but before we go real quick, I would like to thank my sponsors, the Maine Cannababes. Go to mainecannababes.com. They just announced the new models for this year's calendar. Also, if you want to check out the Movie Freaks, go to Facebook, Movie Freaks Pod on Facebook. If you want to support Average Joe's Drive-In on instant media, on social media, been a long day. If you want to support Average Joe's Drive-In on social media, go to Average Joe's Drive-In Podcast on the Facebook. TWJ Author on the Twitter, Thomas Washburn Jr. on Instagram, or you can go to thomaswashburnjr.com. If you wish to support the show financially, which I know you do because you love me, you love the guest, you want to see this expand into an empire, go to Amazon.com, type in Thomas Washburn Jr. My books are on there. You can get Kindle versions for $4 or under, or you can buy paperback if you don't do the ebook thing. But all the money I make off that stuff goes towards the podcast. Also, if you listen to Average Joe's Drive-In or the Movie Freaks and you enjoy the shows, please make sure you rate them and share with your friends and spread the word like you would a bad case of syphilis. Just get it out there, Just don't warn people what's about to happen. Just get it out there, There's a topical cream to take care of it, I think.
Exactly. I like that.
So anyway, Eugene, thank you for being on the show. And
thanks for having me on.
And I just would like to leave you up with this one thought. Remember, kids, opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one, and I will see you on the flip side.
It's intermission. Rise and stretch time. Time to refresh yourself and visit our snack bar. Got a yen for hot popcorn? Your favorite soft drinks are sparkling cold. The juicy Frank sizzling hot. There's delicious coffee, freshly brewed, and all kinds of ice cream and candy to tempt you. Showtime will be announced loud and clear to get you back to your car in time. So stretch your legs, Come to the snack bar now.